Big ideas start with a spark. At Tassi's, we use that spark to ignite the fire in ourselves and our kids. So with the trust we build and the knowledge we share, we can grow together and stand tall, creating opportunities to advance in business while setting an example for the next generation. Whether you are starting fresh in Portugal or expanding globally, we're here to support each other. This is more than a network. We are a community that sets the examples for the leaders of tomorrow.
That is terrifying.
And now we have to spend the next 30 minutes trying to beat this. So Limor told me that our dog does not have a name, so maybe if people want to submit that in their feedback for the conference, we can have a contest or something. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you, Limor and Richard. This is the second time, unofficially, that we've had this panel, because the first time I interviewed Richard about AI, Limor made some incredible contributions and got into the more philosophical side of AI and the things that maybe people of our age worry about, growing up with the Terminator movies and the rise of AI and all those things. And so let's jump right in. Richard and Limor very kindly put together some themes here and questions. And so the first one is that Terminator reference, extinction versus salvation, which ties directly into the title of the panel, the Catalyst versus Catastrophe. Some credible research out there has put the odds of AI causing human extinction at 10% or higher. Is that insane, or are optimists just like completely in denial? What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, I mean, the 10% figure, I don't know, is it 5? Is it 30? I don't know. But I think there's a non-zero chance. And that's primarily because the goal, when you see Meta handing out these sort of billion-dollar pay packages for AI researchers, the reason they're doing that is to get towards what's called ASI, or artificial superintelligence. And that is, by definition, machines that are more capable or more intelligent than humans across every dimension. And I think when that is the case, it's impossible that we could be in control of something and just witness all living creatures that we know of today. It's impossible that we could remain in control of something that is more intelligent than us. And we can talk about intelligence explosion. But so I think on the quest to superintelligence, or immediately at the quest to superintelligence, there is an existential risk posed. And I can't, in my mind, it's sort of nuclear weapon-like. The reason for me that this risk is real is that the pursuit of superintelligence is not happening with any sort of nation-state guardrails in the way nuclear weapons were developed. And so it's a bunch of dudes developing it. One of those dudes is Elon Musk, and another is Mark Zuckerberg. And so these are not people who anyone should be taking a bet on the species with.
And I remember from our first talk, you said that, and I thought it was just a perfect analogy for ASI and the potential future, that you don't think about the ants in your backyard if you're building a pool. Is that something, like, how do you feel about that analogy, Limor, and is that something that we need to be concerned about?
Yeah, I've always told my kids that in any scenario, the bad guys are always the government. So Facebook has fiduciary obligation, there's shareholder meetings, there's a lot of show and business, and bells and whistles, but in the end they are a commercial company. They abide by commercial laws. They can be stopped. Governments, on the other hand, there is no repudiation. There is no obligation to anybody. and they're typically in the West manipulated by minority interests.
Okay.
I think the one thing about governments is it is much easier. Governments don't have a single mandate, right? Like a corporation has a mandate for shareholder returns, maybe stakeholder returns. What these guys at the top of the biggest frontier labs are trying to develop in the form of superintelligence, and the reason they put billion-dollar pay packages on the table is because if extinction level, threat is 10%, there's also a 10% possibility that, say, OpenAI wins and owns the entire, say, software industry globally.
Got it.
Or a robotics company owns the entire oil and gas production value chain globally. So these guys are potentially owning entire economies, entire GDPs. And so that's what they're after, and that will maximize shareholder value. I'm not a huge believer in the power of, or in the efficiency of government, but this is a time where international bodies need to be coming together because of, in the same way we did around nuclear non-proliferation, because the species is at risk.
Okay. And so for my background as a corporate attorney, knowing that despite having that fiduciary duty, corporations sometimes, some people might say often, disregard those obligations, those ideals in the pursuit of the almighty dollar. How would you respond to that with regards to AI?
Yeah, but in the end of the day, they need to. There are laws, and they can go to jail. They're not operating for the benefit of humanity. They might think they are, but they're operating for whatever motivates their small echo chamber. I think it's a progression. The AI is just a progression. I've been through this for all my adult life. There's always been these progressions. The November 23 ChatGPT moment was was one in a long chain of such events. I think that the new AI is a tool. Okay, it's replacing the human brain, which is quite different than the previous steam engine replacing the donkey. But it's a tool. It's a creativity tool. I mean, I use it for creativity. It's like I feel I have a superpower. I can do things now that I would not dream to be able to do in such a short period of time.
And that progress, I think, is absolutely irrefutable. It's something that ties into maybe the next question, which is, if AI could cure cancer, cure poverty, solve climate change, with even a 5% risk of total catastrophe, extinction level event, is that worth it?
I mean, I don't know. Are there any pharmaceuticals we've developed, like anti-malarial or vaccines for childhood measles? Have we ever done anything that we knowingly thought had a 5% chance of wiping out the species? I can't even think of anything comparable that we would have undertaken. And yet we're doing it right now. We're doing it right now. And again, I'm not talking about ChatGPT 6, is going to somehow shoot us all. I'm talking about super intelligence. And that's what these labs are all working on right now.
Got it. And just to be clear, you're someone that works in AI.
I work in AI. I love AI. It's awesome. I use it every day. It's made me a better business person. But we are charging down a path. Multiple private companies in multiple places are assembling nuclear weapons.
And how do you respond to something like that, Limor?
Well, today we heard here from I forgot his name, from Microsoft. He said that right now when you sign up to Copilot, you get access to 1,500 models. Okay, so it's not, those models are democratized. I'm running an LLM on my laptop. It's not great, but it works. So 6 months from now, it will work much better. So in the end of the day, there's going to be these open source LLMs that are democratized, and the Chinese are as well are producing a lot of other models, and it's a very active field of research, and research is not abiding by economic metrics. So I think there is that, and we've always had that in the past. You had cloud versus local, and there's always that balance. There's not a single winner. There are things that are better in the cloud and things that are better in the local. And same thing here, the LLM and other techniques some of them are better in the cloud because they have access to more CPU power and maybe a bigger data set, and some things should be done locally. So, and I find it very difficult. This leap of faith of destroying the world is just, I don't see the intermediate stages.
Sure. Do you want to
flight away? I'm just here for eye candy.
So the basic idea is today, and I see it already in my company, where humans are not authoring code. And increasingly, we sort of distance ourselves from the writing of the code, and there's now machines that instruct agents on writing code. And eventually, what happens is that the AI is writing the AI. Now, I don't even know if we're on the right path, like if large language models is the paradigm towards superintelligence. Lots of super smart people disagree and think it doesn't have like a world model. We have no idea what role consciousness plays, and is it substrate independent or dependent on meat brains? Anyway, but the point is, at the moment that we have something at human level intelligence, particularly something that we didn't write, that other subhuman intelligences wrote, what you have is what's called the intelligence explosion, meaning the next version of the intelligence is written by the intelligence. And we already don't totally know how language models work. These will be inscrutable. And we are already all the sort of golden rules from a decade ago about how to develop or move towards true artificial intelligence in a safe way, we have ignored every step of the way. But the intermediate step is intelligence explosion. We don't understand how the machines are doing what they do, and it's impossible to control something of superior intelligence.
If Richard hypothetically is right about this, and we find out that AI does pose some existential risk to humanity, how do you respond to that? What would you do? Sacrifice your career? What do you think the trade-off level is?
I'm not a big fan of weekend activism. I would move to Argentina.
Why Argentina?
It seems like a place that is self-sufficient in terms of food, energy, and I don't know. It's a matter of, you can't fix the world, so you might as well figure out where the arrows are coming from and run the other way.
Got it. And so in that situation, what do you think are potential roles for people in this room to help minimize that risk? And just, again, playing the devil's advocate and saying, if we learn that there is a non-zero chance of it becoming an extinction level.
So I think there is this thing called open source. So,
okay.
And open source is a mitigation for a lot of cases of this kind where it's worth to put something into the open source where the risk is a public risk. So when it's open source, it means that a lot of professional eyes get to see it. So you have the Wikipedia, and of course some naysayers will say bad things about Wikipedia, but it's a kind of a Wikipedia approach to the problem by saying we have thousands of experts looking at it and analyzing and pinpointing issues on cybersecurity issues, on end of the world scenarios potentially. Of course, this is a black box, the neural network, but But there's other approaches also which open up the black box a little bit here and there to be able to see into the black box. So
Okay.
maybe that's a way about things.
Okay. I'm interested in AI jobs, in how that's going to affect work moving forward. How does that affect the human experience, the ability of opening up hours and hours of free time or whatever with that? We have a perfect example of the future right here with us. How do you think that affects, I guess it's about to get philosophical, about like the human condition?
I mean, people always talk about solitary confinement being, you'll make your own heaven or your own hell. And in some ways, I'm not suggesting we'll all be put in solitary confinement, but if you no longer need to be productive as a human, meaning the activities you undertake are by choice and they are motivated by your interests, your passions, and the obligations you have on your time are relatively minimal, we see, a lot of different examples of the way people conduct their lives, right? I think you can look at French aristocracy in the 1780s, and it was a lot of debauchery and disconnectedness, gossip. And then you can look at, like the Buddha was a prince, right? Who gave everything away and reached enlightenment. So I think there will be every variety of human experience, but I don't think we should necessarily think of it as utopia. But I also think if work disappears and it's not just all capital accumulation in a few companies, but like it's only governments that are going to figure out universal basic income. Like I don't think Elon Musk is going to be, sending us all grok checks.
We can dream.
I think you do need political will to actually get to an abundance economy versus just an extremely concentrated economy. So yes, there will be no productivity needed from humans, but that doesn't mean they're not all starving, right? Like that is a political question. When capital gets so concentrated.
And Limor, I know you were so bullish on when you had recently gotten back from China, I think, and you talked about the robotics factory that you had seen there, kind of flipping things on its head. What opportunities do you see for AI, for robotics, to make life easier, to solve these enormous problems?
So I think, as you said, technically, I think we're heading in a direction where productivity can be achieved with less workforce, with less human workforce. And so the question is, if your company employs 200 people and you get some clever AI consultants, agentic, blah, blah, and they say, well, you can fire today 20 people happily and you'll retain the same productivity. And you go ahead, you're saying, okay, my bottom line is improved. And everybody else does it, and then you've got 20% of the population or 10% of the population that doesn't have a job and cannot get a new job. So the question is then, there is social upheaval. I did this exercise with ChatGPT, it's fun, like the 7 signs of hell, and gradually looking out for signs of social unrest. This is a process that is inevitable. So in China right now, the government is investing a lot in creating an ecosystem, a supply chain for humanoid robots. They're investing in what's called the VLA, I don't remember what it stands for, but it's basically dexterity, hand dexterity. So you've got thousands of people teleoperating 24 hours a day, humanoid robots that do things, and then they're sensing their brain, their fingertips, the robots, everything, and they're collecting all this data and trying to create a neural network to do sort of all the things that people do. Changing a tire, cutting lettuce, folding laundry. So that's happening, and there's billions invested in it, and it's going to happen. So eventually those machines, the humanoid robots, even though they're not the most efficient, so 45 motors, You know, it's not, and legs and all this stuff, which is not really ideal for solving problems. But if you have a single machine that does it all, and you just replace the driver and the pallet mover and and everybody else, you replace them with humanoid robots. You've got a single machine that is very versatile and can work around the clock. So that productivity jump is huge. I don't see that stopping. I don't see that. There's no roadblocks there. It's happening. Maybe it will happen later here, but it will happen. And eventually we need to see that the governments right now are not fit for purpose. So
is there a plan, like in China, for labor displacement when those factory jobs are run by humanoid robots? Do you know?
I don't know.
It'd be interesting to know.
And to jump back to what you said earlier about governments versus private companies, how do you find that with China, since it is all government controlled versus the more capitalistic approaches in the West?
Yeah, so there is a centralized, but they are doing very clever things. Instead of like Europe, funding the livelihood of universities and useless startups, they fund the buying side of humanoid robots. So they'll go to BYD and say, you buy 2,000 robots, we'll give you money. And then that creates an ecosystem of private investors that fund the R&D for those humanoid robots for BYD. So that's very cleverly done. In terms of the displacement of people, I don't know. I haven't asked that question to Grok.
Got it. So go home and ask that question to Grok. Kind of to jump into, and you touched on this a little bit, the question you put was, are we kidding ourselves that humans are still driving AI development, or have competitive pressures and profit motives taken the wheel? And to add on to that a little bit, how would you describe that through the lens of ethics, government, capitalism?
I mean, I think humans are still very much in charge. I mean, as you said earlier, like the black box of, that sits at the center of these transformer models and the neural networks. We still don't totally get it. Like the people, like the sort of originators of transformer models and espousing sort of neural nets as the path forward was still a bit mysterious. Like it operates like language, and the brain is still mysterious. So I'd say that is still sort of dark matter, but understood around the edges. Development of it is still very much guided by humans. The priorities are set by humans. The fact that it exists inside, like I'm very glad like Meta is doing open source. So the llama models accidentally were made open source, and they decided to just stick with it in the hopes that they would have a bigger developer community. And there's multiple other open source models out there. But the true like frontier models before they go out, those are still very much under wraps inside of companies like DeepMind or Gemini, OpenAI, and Anthropic. But I think they're all very much capitalist enterprises now. And so there is an imperative to grow, to be the best, and to monetize, right? Because these guys are all worth now hundreds of billions of dollars.
Limor, what about you? Where do you see that?
What was the question again?
Are we
boring you?
Yeah.
No.
Now, are we kidding ourselves that like humans are still in charge of this AI development? You're kind of springboarding off of the discussion of superintelligence, of how AI is writing the code that's writing the code that's writing the code. Is that something, so are we still looking at this through a humanistic lens, or is it just pure competitive pressure and profit at this point?
At least the way I see it, it's a tool, especially for coding, for legal matters, for medical matters. It's a tool, and you can use the tool, and it's proliferating. There's a lot of speculative money pouring in, and so there's a lot of people, very clever people, that are making it better every day. And so are we in control? I don't know. Who's we and why and what's the point? There's no fear-mongering reason here. There's like it's advancing, and what can we can exploit it, or we can stand by and watch it, but it is what it is. It's just like any other. If you look at the McKinsey hype cycle, right? It's every other year. It's kind of there's always something new. This, of course, is different again because this is replacing labor and human brain and a lot of stuff that was inconceivable in the past. So it is different, and the fact of control is what we're still in a kind of an early stage. This is still malleable. It's not clear who's the boss here and who's the winner. There's a lot of players and a lot of opportunity for new players to come in and beat, NVIDIA even, and beat ChatGPT to the game.
Yeah, I totally agree. We don't know where superintelligence will pop out from. Like, is it going to be from a large language model? Is it going to be from a new breed of world model building companies? Is it going to come from somewhere else? We don't know. But I do think there's almost no one that thinks if we get to superintelligence, everyone thinks if we get to superintelligence, that will be our last invention. Like, there's nothing else to invent after that. And just definitionally, that's what superintelligence is. So that will be kind of weird, right? Like, all inventions are going to come from artificial intelligence.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting because at least with coding, the super clever people who are just defining the boundaries. So you say, these are the test criterias. Here is your simulated data. Make it happen. I'll go have coffee. And you come back. Lo and behold, it works. You don't know how. It doesn't matter. It just does what you asked. So you have to be careful what you ask. But it just works. And you have no emotional baggage with, having micromanaged or told people to do something totally useless, and then you have to say, oh no, I don't like it, do it again. You can do it 10 times per day, and you just define what you want and the test criteria. So the new programming language is English. In many cases, it's not 100% there, but that's the direction.
And it's spoken because voice processing has gotten so good as well at the same time.
How do you that triggers my legal brain of the fact that we've had in the United States a Supreme Court case over a comma in a sentence and how things can be interpreted so differently. How does AI deal with that, with different meanings, as you said, you have to be careful what you tell it. How does AI, these models, how does that deal with language?
They're just trained on, everything written, almost everything thought by humanity just gets dumped in there. Even today, like, these models are getting more and more powerful. The artifacts they put out are more and more complex, but they are still, they're little prediction machines, right? It's just predictive text, but in real long form. But those little details are just from seeing patterns in data over and over and over in language.
Well, I'm seeing that we're about to wrap up on time, and I don't want to, I want to prove the previous panel wrong, that it's only the ladies that can finish on time. So thank you guys. Thank you. I know that this is probably a more philosophical approach to some of the other panels, but I also want to give time to our friend to, so we don't be rushed off stage. He's waking up.
We're all gonna die.